In this video, I'm going to use LearnSphere's Tigris workflow tool and gradebook data to identify an assignment that seems to be worth investigating in order to potentially improve that assignment and improve that course. The course gradebook that I'm going to use is the course gradebook from a psychology MOOC. I'll show it here in Excel first. The first column is the student identifier. The top row is the different assessments, including quizzes, a few extra credit written assignments, midterm, and a final exam. The last column is a final grade, which is some weighted composite of other scores. So the top row is variables, the first column is students, the following columns are assessments, and the last column is a summary score. The last column is optional. If you don't have a final grade, it can be computed for you. Now we're going to use Tigris to analyze this data. You can get to Tigris from learnsphere.org like this, or you can go directly to this URL above. Once you log in and create an account, you will get to the workflow homepage. This is where you'll see your workflows and have access to others' workflows if they are public. We're going to create a new workflow. The list of various components in Tigris is found on the left here. We're going to start our workflow, as most others start, by importing some data. I'll drag the import component into the workflow, then hit the gear icon to open its settings. I'm going to upload a data file from my own computer, but please notice that the files that I have access to in DataShop are listed here for convenience. My gradebook is tab delimited, then I'll select the file and upload it. The file is ready to be uploaded, but it won't be imported until I will run the workflow. Before running the workflow though, I'm going to go into the component list, and under Analysis, I'm going to drag out the correlation component. I'll connect the gradebook data to the correlation component by dragging the output node of the import to the input node of the correlation component. With new components, it is important to click the gear on them and see which settings need to be set or modified. This gradebook already has a summary column, so I'll set this to true. If your gradebook does not have a final grade as the last column, select false. I'll click the Save and Run button to get the results of the correlation component. To view the results, I can double-click an output node, or I can click the magnifying glass. If your gradebook did not have a summary column, it will be computed here at the bottom. In this correlation matrix, I can see how well each assessment correlates with the final grade in this bottom row, as well as how the assessments correlate with each other throughout the matrix. We notice that the green highlighted cells are particularly high correlations, while the red cells are low. The thresholds for highlighting cells can be set at the top. One interesting pattern is that the quizzes leading up to the midterm have a very high correlation with it, as you'd expect. What we are interested in this video is which module or assessment is most predictive of the final grade. We see that a few quizzes are highly correlated with the final grade. Interestingly, the midterm is more correlated with the final grade than the final exam. This cell suggests that students who do well on quiz 9 do well in the class, and students who do poorly on quiz 9 do not do well in the class. So is there something about quiz 9 and the module associated with it that we could consider improving? I have data from the items in quiz 9, so now I'll import it into the workflow to investigate further. I'll import my data from quiz 9 just as I did with the class gradebook. Then I'll go into the component list and drag out a Chromebox Alpha component. I'll connect this to my quiz data, make sure I've set the settings correctly, then I'll run the workflow. Chromebox Alpha computes reliability values for the items, a measure of the expected correlation of the two items that measure the same construct. Once the workflow is finished running, we can look at the file that has been imported by double-clicking the output node. The first column is the student identifier, and the last column is the total score for each student on quiz 9. There are columns for each of the questions or items, with a 1 indicating that the student got the question correct. Let's look at the results of the Chromebox Alpha component by clicking the magnifying glass. What this table will show you is a sense that the overall quiz is reasonably reliable with a Chromebox Alpha of 0.74. The exclusion analysis below it suggests that all of the items are, at least from a psychometrics point of view, contributing to the reliability such that If we take any one question out, the overall reliability doesn't go up. So none of these questions are bad, but if there are any for which students perform poorly, we might consider how the instruction might be improved to make the material more accessible. This is not about making the question easier.